WXPI Radio, in association with What the Heck Are We Doing Productions, presents exclusive behind-the-scenes audio from the set of Pokemon, Detective Pikachu. Detective Pikachu, Scene 3, Take 5.
Pikachu, we have to find my dad and save Rhyme City.
Pika, 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 Pikachu, Pika, Pikachu.
Ooh, here comes that cute girl reporter.
Pika, 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 Pikachu, Pikachu.
Ew, gross. I don't even want to think about how to get my leg to do that.
Pikachu, Pika, Pikachu, 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 Pikachu.
Okay, cut. Guys, I'm sorry, but this isn't working. Get Ryan on the phone and we'll ADR the whole thing in post.
Hello and welcome to Hugh's Reviews, the place for movie views and spoiler clues. Another week in another Toho movie with 5 minutes of Ken Watanabe. This is a really weird pattern. From the director and writer of Monsters vs. Aliens comes Pokemon, Detective Pikachu, a wonderfully silly movie that is unabashedly unashamed of its goofball roots. That, though hampered slightly by a screenplay chock full of predictable twists and tropes, is still creative enough in its world building and lovable characters that most folks will be able to turn off their logic centers and enjoy the shiny toys on screen. I'm just gonna be honest, I never got into Pokemon. When it exploded as a full-blown phenomenon in the 90s, I was just a few years too old to really get into it, but I knew it peripherally and gleaned bits and pieces from pop culture the way a lot of people did. The way I look at it, though, when you're watching a new non-sequel movie, you shouldn't have to have done 175 hours of hardcore homework to enjoy it. In that respect, and a lot of others, I was not disappointed. You see, after reviewing Godzilla 2019 and Chronicles of Riddick, I really needed something fun and colorful that wasn't a direct sequel, reboot, reimagining, or cinematic universe franchise builder that left the good stuff to the next movie. I was desperate for something that was pure and simple childish fun, so I took a bit of a risk and picked Detective Pikachu. Yeah, I made the right choice. A big spoiler warning for everyone. I don't want to reveal anything too vital, but I am going to give some minor spoilers in this review. You've been warned. When Detective Goodman dies in a horrible car accident, his estranged son, Tim, travels to Rhyme City to collect his belongings. There he meets Pikachu, his father's Pokemon partner. Shocked to learn that they are the only human and Pokemon in the whole world who can understand one another, they set out to uncover the truth behind the accident and wind up discovering a secret that will shake the very fabric of society. Though some will call me a hypocrite for excusing the lackluster script in this movie, when I flayed Godzilla 2019 for a lot of the same foibles, I'm just gonna say this. Remember when I said if Godzilla had been goofier, I'd have given its stupidity a gentler hand? This is what I was talking about. I'm going to be a lot harder on a movie that thinks it's a drama than a movie that knows it's silly and revels in it. But when a movie knows it's silly and can make me take it seriously, like this one did, that's a nice magic trick. Detective Pikachu, though it has a stereotypical kid movie script, at least knew enough to bank all its goodwill on world building and character in the moment, rather than sequel bait and cynical nostalgia. And it was bright and cheerful where Godzilla was drab grays and browns and depressing monologues. I didn't care about Godzilla, but somehow I cared about the little lightning bunny and his human. See the difference? Something I really appreciate in this movie is the use of the digital characters. We're kind of spoiled these days when it comes to effects. So much so that some movie companies don't bother to integrate their digi properly and just throw pixels on the screen like candy bursting from a piñata. But in Detective Pikachu, it was obvious for the most part that some real consideration and care was taken to make us feel like those little plushies are really there. Actors on screen rather than cartoons. They're always blended into the scene, not used as a distraction. I once heard that the hardest scene in which to insert a digitally animated character is the one in full sunlight, because the edges and lines are that much harder to blend into the real world in which it's projected. In this movie, they did that so well, I forgot that Pikachu or most of the other creatures weren't really there. Some of that credit should definitely go to the production team who worked tirelessly, I'm sure, to providing reference points for the human actors, and to the actors themselves for being so adept at picking up on cues from creatures who weren't even there. You know when you see your nephew play pretend with his little stuffed animals, and he always seems to think they're real? Now imagine that, but the teddy bear really talks back, and your nephew introduces you to it, and you spend an hour talking to it over coffee. The fantasy becomes real, and disbelief is completely suspended. That's what a movie is supposed to do. As I mentioned before, the one place they could have used more of that creativity is the script. I've seen some of the old cartoons, so I know bad writing is normal for Pokemon, maybe even part of the charm. I'm not expecting Shakespeare here, but considering how different in style and tone this movie was from the old cartoons, I thought they'd have something a little more interesting plot-wise than this tired old formula. Where the cartoons were over-the-top melodrama and silliness, this feels a little recycled and stale. See if you recognize this plot from somewhere. A kid learns his parent has disappeared and goes looking for them. Along the way, he meets a stranger who seems to have a connection to the missing person, so they team up. Their relationship is a bit strained at first, but they go through some adventures together and become close friends. Then a secret or a lie one of them has been holding back is revealed, and they aren't friends anymore, just so the betrayer can come back at the very end to save the day and everyone's best buddies again. Throw in a few plot twists that won't surprise anyone except for very small children, have a big bad yelling exposition, and "I will rule the world" monologues for 15 minutes, foil his scheme, call it a day. This is fill-in-the-blank screenwriting. And no, it's just a kid's movie is not a valid excuse. We've seen time and time again how well-written children's films can be. A lackluster script is still a lackluster script. And I think kids deserve to have their intelligence respected as much as any other audience. Some studios get that, and this one comes close. I suppose I could cut it some slack because I did enjoy the movie, and its creativity elsewhere was a real treat. But the vibrancy and inventiveness in all the other aspects just made that sort of lazy writing much more blatant. And speaking of blatant, okay, let's talk about Ryan Reynolds. I'm a pretty big Reynolds fan. I've liked him since Two Guys, a Girl, in a Pizza Place. Loved Deadpool, loved some of his more serious work. The guy's got comedic and dramatic chops, even if he's mostly known for his motor-mouth dry wit. When going into Detective Pikachu, I was a little worried that such a recognizable voice and style would be distracting. I was pleasantly surprised. It only reached that level a few times, mostly when Reynolds makes some double entendre grown-up jokes that were a little jarring coming from the adorable Pikachu. I guess that was the point, but when it happens, it was less shocking funny and more Ryan's dirty puppet show. It wasn't Pikachu being sly, it was Ryan Reynolds doing pervy improv out of character. Thankfully, there wasn't much of that. Reynolds' rhythms did dictate most of the comedy in the movie, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was there off-screen doing line reads and ad-libbing, while the on-screen actors reacted to an eyeline puppet. There's no way you get that sort of tight back and forth after the fact in a voice booth. I was pulled out of the movie a lot, though, thinking about how much Reynolds, as Pikachu, was talking, and how weird it must sound to everyone who only hears "Pika, Pika" every time he talks. 'Cause Pikachu talks a lot. If one of my pets squeaked with the frequency that Pikachu would be seeming to, I'd call a veterinarian. Certainly, there was so much riffing from Reynolds that more than half of his lines seemed improvisational, and considering the laziness of the rest of the script, I really don't think they made an exception just for the banana squirrel. Bill Nighy as the philanthropic Howard Clifford is a bit of a waste. Or at least it looks that way until the end of the movie. No spoilers, but though the end finally gave him something to do rather than the rest of the movie's nothing to do, he's still not given much of anything good to do. A little bit of a waste of a solid talent. With all this being said, I did enjoy the movie, even if the third act could have stood to go through a few more evolutions. Some little tweaks in the script, and it could have been a lot better than the cute distraction it is. It's colorful, it's fun, it's harmless, but it's more a stream it at home and entertain the kiddies while you get the dishes done than a gotta see it in theaters. Well, that's it for now from Hugh's Reviews. A special shout out to the Mundorf family for their technical assistance on this week's episode, and to our underwriters at Moons of Vega Photography. As always, everyone, happy viewing!